Hello everybody and welcome to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. My name is Jason C, and if you're a subscriber, thanks so much for the support. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for the latest in whiskey and bourbon news and reviews, you have found the right place, so hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification so you know when I'm releasing a new video, or you could join in on one of my live streams. So in 1950, Wild Turkey released their first rye whiskey. In 2007, Russell's Reserve 6-year rye was introduced, followed by Wild Turkey 81 in 2012. In 2015, Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye was launched, and so did the market's affinity for rye whiskey. Wild Turkey's fourth release in the award-winning Master's Keep series, and the first one that isn't a bourbon, is the newly released Master's Keep Cornerstone, and it's today's Mash and Drum review. Wild Turkey may be best known for their 101 proof bourbon, one of the most influential classics in the industry and one of my personal favorites. But the Kentucky distillery also has plenty of ryes in its portfolio, including the 81 rye, the 101 rye, Russell's Reserve 6-year, and Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye. Now for their next limited edition release, the brand is unleashing a bottle billed as its oldest rye whiskey ever. So Eddie Russell, who famously took over distilling duties from his father, the legendary Jimmy Russell, explained that part of his interest in exploring the nuances of older rye was thanks to his son Bruce, who is currently also working at the distillery and is a big part of the rye movement at Wild Turkey. Eddie Russell said that Wild Turkey was one of the few legacy distilleries that remained loyal to crafting rye, even as vodka and gin became the new hot thing. Cornerstone Rye celebrates our continued commitment to the grain, as my own son Bruce has reminded me, given his devotion to rye and working with the bartender community, it's a fundamental part of our history. Alright, so let's get a closer look at that bottle. Wild Turkey Master's Keep Cornerstone Rye is the first rye whiskey that Wild Turkey has released in that Master's Keep line. For this one-of-a-kind limited edition, Eddie Russell handpicked and set aside a secret lot of his oldest and boldest rye whiskey barrels, all aged from 9 to 11 years old. Only about 15,000 bottles were produced, bottled at 54.5% ABV or 109 proof. This is non-chill filtered and ages at their Camp Nelson warehouses. This is available now with an MSRP of about $175. All right, guys, so here's a close-up of the Master's Keep box. As you can see, just like the other Master's Keep releases, it comes in this beautiful collector's box. It opens just like this, just like the other ones. The bottle fits right in, nice and snug. The bottle this here comes with this beautiful copper top. It's a really heavy cork, really nice. You got some information for the batch, information for the proof, the age, all on the top of this band here. So as you can see, I've put a pretty good dent in it, and this has evolved a little bit. So let's get into it. There's that big heavy cork. Let's get a pour. A little bit more. All right. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so my first impressions of this rye whiskey were very good at first, and I've been sipping on it. As you can see, it's already down past the shoulder. Trying to break down for you exactly what I'm tasting here, but with that experience, I picked up some different nuances that were not there in my first few sips. But before we get into it, I want to give away a sample of this Wild Turkey Cornerstone for one lucky viewer, along with an official Mash and Drum Challenge coin. So stay tuned to the end of the video to find out how to enter. All right, so let's get into the color first. So as you can see, this is a nice dark kind of a rusty orange color. It's got a nice kind of a caramel hue to it. Really coats the glass well. Remember, non-chill filter at 109 proof. Beautiful color to it. A really beautiful color for a rye whiskey. It's nice and dark and rich. All right, guys, let's go into the nose. Here we go. All right, so the first note that I picked up as soon as I opened this bottle, my first impression was a medicinal cherry note. And it's still there. There's a big cherry punch up front, almost equated to like a Luden's cough drop, or maybe like a Pine Brothers cough drop, the chewy ones, which I used to love growing up. But that's what it kind of brings me back to. I mean, that's a note I've never gotten in a Wild Turkey rye. It's really unique. There's cinnamon. There's clove. There's a sharp fruit aspect to it, whether it's apple or something citrusy that's also spiking through as well. As you get deeper, there's some light brown sugar. Some of those quintessential Wild Turkey notes now come to the forefront. Some herbal tea, some mint. and just a ton of pepper still. Now, the big difference that I've had from when I first opened it to now is now the age is showing through. There's a good amount of a charred oak characteristic in here too. It's almost musty, like that, like a musty oak. Almost smells like a warehouse when you walk in. You kind of get that air, that musty oak, and like it's been sitting around for a while. I mean, we do have some whiskey in here between 9 and 11 years old, but it's still very cherry, very minty, oaky. So the one thing that's kind of come to the forefront on the nose from the beginning is that cherry, that kind of a medicinal cherry note. But you still got a lot of those classic Wild Turkey rye flavors, the mint, the cinnamon. You got a little bit of an apple note in there too that I always get on a Wild Turkey rye. But that musty smells also come through with a little bit of air into the bottle. All right, it's time to go in for a sip. Here we go. Cheers. Wow, the flavor really hits through like a freight train here. The amount of pepper that's in here that you get in this glass, you could smell it on the nose, and it really translates to the palate. The pepperiness of this, the mintiness really comes through first. You do get a hint of that cherry right up front. Let's go in for another sip and see what we get here. All right, so now after your palate wakes up, you start getting some different flavors here. Super amount of cherry up front. That medicinal cherry note is very, very present, especially on the forefront. As it works its way back, those flavors I was getting as far as the apples, there's a cinnamon spice to it. That herbal tea note that you get on a Wild Turkey rye still hangs around on the side of the palate. Like I said, it sticks around. It's pretty viscous. But my goodness, the finish on this thing, what it does to the back of your palate, is probably the most remarkable thing about this whiskey, and it's still kind of sticking around. Let's go for another quick sip here. Here we go. All right, so third sip. It's getting a little bit sweeter now. So now you're getting a little bit more of a Kentucky rye characteristic. A little bit of those caramels, vanillas, that sugary sweetness is coming through. The cherry is still prevalent there, but not as much as it was on the first and second sips. Now you're getting a little bit more, some more sweet flavors, the cinnamon, the oak characteristic. That age is really starting to play a part in it as well. You're starting to get some barrel char, especially on the finish. I mean, the mash bill for Wild Turkey is reportedly 52% rye, 36% corn, 12% malted barley. So this is a Kentucky rye. It's a barley rye. It's got a lot of corn in it, so you are going to get a good amount of sweetness in there as well to kind of balance out that spice. But it's a very viscous, chewy type of experience. It's very mouth coating. Yeah, and the finish on this thing, well, let's get into the finish next. Let's go for another sip. Here we go. So on that sip again, most of those sweet type of flavors are coming through now. That cinnamon, the caramels, a little bit of vanilla, like a nice candy, minty sweetness to it. Again, still very mouth coating. It leaves a tingling on the sides of your tongue that just stays. But the most fascinating thing about this whiskey to me is the finish. The finish is ridiculously long. It just lingers and it lingers and it lingers and it just hangs around for a good while. I mean, when I was first sipping on this thing and taking sips, I literally didn't have to go back and take another sip for, a good few minutes. I mean, it just lasts that long. It's minty. It's extremely peppery. It hangs around. One of the longest finishes I've had on any whiskey. Let's go for one last sip here. Here we go. Cheers. Man, that's just a damn good rye. I mean, the cherry note, I'm a little disappointed, kind of goes away a little bit. It's one of the differentiators that I really like in this bottle. But what you're left with is some really good classic Wild Turkey rye notes. You get that cinnamon, that apple cinnamon that I pick up. You get an herbal quality to it. But the thing that's kind of kind of really being over the top right now is that black pepper and mint spice that you get on the sides of your tongue that just stick there and they linger and they tingle. And then it just translates to the finish as it goes down. I keep saying it, the finish on this is probably the most ridiculous part of this bottle. I probably haven't had a finish that long in a long time. So based on finish, it's a very, very good rye. But as far as the rest of it, is it really worth $175? All All right, guys, so I really think that this is a delicious and impressive rye whiskey from Wild Turkey. It gives a cherry flavor up front, especially in the beginning, viscous mouthfeel with an unbelievable peppery finish that goes on and on for days. Now, with that said, at $175 MSRP, it's still a tough sell to me. If you look at the 3 previous releases and their MSRPs, you could see in comparison, the Cornerstone is definitely coming in at the most expensive release yet. Not sure if this is going to be a trend for future releases, but we'll find that out. What I will say is that if $175 is a lot of money and a major purchase for you, or if you're just a casual rye drinker that will only have a rye every now and again, then I would recommend Pikesville Rye at 6 years at 110 proof, only $50. Or even both the Wild Turkey 101 and Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Ryes at $30 and $60 respectively. They're all delicious Kentucky ryes with flavors that you could find in this class of Cornerstone. So if you're thinking about it, try and find a pour of this Cornerstone first before you pull the trigger and buy this for $175. But if you're a Kentucky rye enthusiast that's always looking for something different, such as a rich cherry flavor and a finish that goes on for days, I think you will not be disappointed in Cornerstone. Personally, I would have liked to see this being priced at about $125 to $150, like some of the other previous releases from Master's Keep. But even at $175, even though it's a delicious rye, I just don't think there's enough there aside from that cherry flavor and that long finish to warrant the price tag of $175 for a rye. Especially with tax, you're looking at close to about $200 for this bottle, when there's a lot of quality ryes out there between $25 and $50. Okay, everyone, so if you would like to win a sample of a Wild Turkey Cornerstone to give it a try it before you buy it, and a Mash and Drum Challenge coin, then leave a comment below that includes the words "gobble gobble." If you do that, you will be automatically entered. Out of all the entries that I get, I will select one winner at random during my next live stream this Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching this episode of the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room for this review of the Wild Turkey Master's Keep Cornerstone Rye. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments if you've had this yet, what you think, if you've had the same experience that I have, what you think of it. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. Find me on Instagram and find me on Twitter. Love talking with you guys. Good luck for the contest next week. And as I always say, it is not about the whiskey. It is the people you share it with. So cheers and good luck to you all. Take care.